Welcome back to the deep dive. I want to start today by potentially ruining your morning routine.
That's a darker opening than we usually go for.
Well, I want you to picture your kitchen counter this morning. You wake up groggy, maybe you take a multivitamin, you scoop some protein powder into a shaker, maybe you put on some moisturizer.
That's pretty standard.
It feels routine, right?
Yeah.
It feels simple. You buy a bottle, you use it. But the stack of documents we're looking at today reveals that getting that powder into that bottle is, well, it's honestly a miracle it happens at all.
It really is. We usually just see the finished product, the shelf
Yeah.
part of lab to shelf.
Right.
But if you peel back the label, the manufacturing process for things we consume, food, supplements, cosmetics, is a logistical tightrope walk. And frankly, a lot of companies are falling off.
That is exactly what we're diving into. We are analyzing a platform called BatchBuddy. Now, on the surface, it's software. But really, it's a lens into this massive disruption happening in CPG consumer packaged goods. We're looking at their technical docs, a rebuttal playbook, and a competitive analysis that essentially claims the entire industry is running on broken tools.
And the core thesis here is just fascinating. It's that the tools we use to build cars are breaking the companies that build vitamins.
Let's stop there, because this is the first big concept in the research. The distinction between discrete manufacturing and process manufacturing.
Yes.
I'll be honest, before reading this, I thought manufacturing was just manufacturing.
Yeah.
You know, you build stuff in a factory. Why does this distinction matter so much?
It's everything. It's the difference between, let's say, Legos and baking a cake.
Yeah.
Most people, when they think of a factory, they're thinking of discrete manufacturing. That's the Legos. You're building a car or a laptop. You need one steering wheel, 4 tires, 1 engine.
A plus B equals C?
Exactly. It's assembly.
Yeah.
If you need to make 2 cars, you just need 2 steering wheels. It's perfectly linear.
Okay, that makes sense. A steering wheel is a steering wheel.
Exactly. But what we're talking about today, process manufacturing, that's baking. You aren't assembling parts, you are blending formulas, you're dealing with chemistry, you're taking raw ingredients, powders, liquids, and you're irreversibly combining them. Once you mix the flour and the eggs, you can't unmix them.
Right.
And unlike a steering wheel, which is always a steering wheel, ingredients change, potency changes, moisture content changes.
So if my shipment of vitamin C powder is slightly weaker than the last batch, I can't just throw it in.
Precisely. You have to adjust the math. You might need, say, 1.05 kilos instead of 1.0 kilos to get the same claim on the label. A system built for assembling iPhones doesn't know how to handle potency.
It just sees item A.
It just sees item A, and that disconnect is causing what the source documents call the 5 operational nightmares.
I loved this section of the reading. It read like a horror story for operations managers. They call them nightmares. But the text says, for most factories, this is just Tuesday.
It is. And it's usually because they're trying to manage all this complex chemistry in Excel spreadsheets.
Let's walk through these, because nightmare number 1 sounds expensive. They call it the $10,000 batch failure.
This is such a classic scaling issue. Picture this. You're a formulator in a lab. You make a new energy drink flavor. You make a 1 kilogram test batch. Tastes amazing. The math is perfect.
Okay.
Now, sales calls and says, great, we need 10,000 units. So you need to scale that recipe from 1 kilogram to, say, 500.
So you just open the spreadsheet, multiply every cell by 500, and hit print. Easy.
In a perfect world, yes. But in the real world, maybe you miss a cell, or you misplace a decimal point. Or, and this is way more common than people realize, you forget about displacement.
Displacement, what's that?
Well, 500 kilos of a really fluffy powder takes up a massive amount of space compared to 500 kilos of a dense liquid. If you just multiply the weight, you might end up with a volume that literally, physically overflows your mixing tank.
And you don't realize this
Until you've already dumped $10,000 worth of raw whey protein and saffron into the mixer and it starts spilling onto the floor. And if the ratio is off or it doesn't fit, you can't fix it. It's process manufacturing, remember. You can't unmix the cake batter. You have to dump the whole batch and pay to dispose of it.
That hurts just thinking about it. So how does BatchBuddy solve that scaling problem? Is it just a better calculator?
It's what they call scientific scaling. It's not just multiplying numbers. The system understands the physics of the ingredients. It knows the specific gravity and density.
So it knows how fluffy the powder is.
Exactly. So when you type in 500 kilogram batch, it validates that the ratio holds up and that it will physically fit in your equipment. It stops you before you pour.
Okay, so we avoid the $10,000 spill. But nightmare number 2, gave me secondhand anxiety. The mid-production panic.
We've all been there in the kitchen, right? You're halfway through making an omelet and realize you have no eggs.
Right, but I can just run to the corner store. It takes 5 minutes.
You can't do that when you have a factory crew of 20 people standing around a mixer that costs $500 an hour to run. The scenario here is, you start the batch, you weigh out the protein, the flavor, and then you go to the bin for magnesium, and it's just empty.
How does that even happen? Don't they track inventory?
They do, but often in a totally different system. Or on a clipboard. Someone used the magnesium yesterday for a different run and forgot to write it down.
And the panic is that production just stops cold.
Stops cold, you miss deadlines, you pay overtime, and your equipment sits idle. Silence in a factory is the most expensive sound there is.
And the solution here seems deceptively simple. Pre-production inventory validation.
It is simple, but it's revolutionary for this industry. Because BatchBuddy is lab to shelf, the inventory isn't in a silo. Before the system even lets you click Start Batch, it checks your digital inventory against the recipe.
A green light, red light system.
Exactly. If the magnesium isn't there, or if that specific lot number is expired, you get a red light. You literally cannot start the failure.
It saves you from yourself.
Oh.
Okay, nightmare number 3 is sneaky. This isn't about operations, it's about money. The margin mystery.
This is the silent killer. This is how companies go out of business while having record sales.
Explain that. How do you lose money on record sales?
Okay, so imagine you sign a contract to make protein bars for a big gym chain. You quote them, say, $1.50 a bar because your cost to make it is $1. You have a 50-cent margin. Great.
That's good.
But that was in January. By June, the price of cocoa butter has spiked 20%. The price of whey is up 10%.
But you're still selling them for $1.50.
Exactly. And if you're managing your costs in a spreadsheet that you updated 6 months ago, you think you're still making money. But in reality, your cost is now $1.60. You are paying the customer 10 cents to eat every bar.
And you don't find out until the end of the quarter when the CFO starts screaming.
Right. BatchBuddy handles this with real-time cost per serving. Because it's connected to your purchasing, the moment you buy a new drum of cocoa butter at a higher price, the system instantly recalculates the margin for every single recipe that uses it.
So you know today, not in 3 months.
You get an alert, margin drop below 20%. You know immediately.
Okay, moving to nightmare number 4. This one involves the fun police. The auditors. The supplier nightmare.
The dreaded COA, the certificate of analysis.
This is the paperwork that proves the turmeric is actually turmeric and not, I don't know, yellow sawdust.
Essentially, yes. In this industry, you have to prove safety and purity for every single ingredient in every single batch. When an FDA auditor walks in, they might pick a bottle off the line and say, show me the paperwork for the vitamin D used in this specific bottle.
And typically, that involves what the document calls the archaeological dig.
It really is an excavation. You're digging through 4 different filing cabinets, searching vitamin D in the purchasing manager's email inbox, trying to match lot numbers. It's a total mess.
And if you can't find it quickly,
you get written up. Or worse, they pause your production until you can prove safety.
So BatchBuddy acts like a digital librarian for this.
It links the document to the lot number right when it arrives. You scan the ingredient when it comes off the truck. You upload the PDF right there. Then, when you use that ingredient in a batch, the link just travels with it.
So the auditor asks, you click, and there it is.
You click the batch, and boom, there's the PDF.
Finally, nightmare number 5. Who changed my formula? This sounds like corporate espionage.
Sometimes it is, but usually it's just inconsistency. This is a huge issue with intellectual property. Suppose you have a secret recipe for the world's best energy drink.
Okay.
Do you want every temporary worker on the factory floor to know the exact ratio of your secret ingredient?
Probably not. And you definitely don't want them tweaking it because they think it needs a little more sugar.
Exactly. The source mentions blind access and role-based permissions. The floor team sees what they need to do their job. Add 5 kilograms of bag A, but they might not see what is in bag A or the master formula behind it.
It locks down the IP.
It locks it down so the recipe is executed perfectly, but the secret stays secret.
So we have these nightmares and we have this solution, but I want to play devil's advocate here for a second. Software for manufacturing exists. Huge companies use SAP, Oracle, NetSuite.
Of course.
Why does this specific process manufacturing sector have such a hard time? Why not just use the big tools?
This is what they call the square peg problem. The competitor analysis in the documents breaks the landscape into 3 buckets to explain why the standard tools fail. It's a Goldilocks situation. Nothing is quite right.
Okay, walk me through the buckets.
So first, you have the 2 narrow tools, things like Genesis R&D. If you're a nutritionist, you love Genesis. It's amazing for calculating calories and making the nutritional label compliant, but it stops at the lab door. It doesn't do inventory. It doesn't do purchase orders. It doesn't run the factory. So you have a $7,000 piece of software that creates a PDF, and then you have to manually type that data into something else.
That's the fragmentation text.
That's it. Okay, bucket 2.
The 2 generic.
Right. These are the modern inventory tools like Sin7, Fishbowl, or Katana. You see these a lot with Shopify brands, and they're great if you're selling T-shirts or assembling watches.
Discrete manufacturing.
Exactly. They're great at item A plus item B, but they really struggle with the chemistry. They don't handle potency. They don't handle overages. They don't handle the complex unit conversions like buying in drums but using in milligrams.
You end up fighting the software.
You do. You're trying to make it do math it was never designed for.
And then bucket 3, the heavy hitters, the monoliths, SAP NetSuite. Why don't they just work?
Oh, they work. If you have $1 million and 2 years to set them up, the pain point here is monolith fatigue. The sources cite a 60% failure rate for these implementations.
60%.
Yeah, they are so big and complex that customizing them for something as specific as a vitamin blend takes months of very expensive consulting.
In BatchBuddy's pitches, what?
Yeah.
We're cheaper.
Cheaper and faster. They claim you can set it up in 24 to 48 hours with pricing starting around $150 a month. It's a disruption because it democratizes the kind of logic that used to cost 6 figures.
But hold on, if I'm a massive enterprise, let's say I'm a public company, I have to use SAP. My investors require it. I can't run a billion-dollar company on a $300 tool.
No, you can't. And that's the smartest part of their strategy. They don't try to replace SAP.
Right.
They introduce a concept called system of engagement.
Distinguish that for me. System of record versus system of engagement.
So think of SAP as your system of record. It's the vault. It holds the ultimate financial truth. The CFO looks at SAP. You don't rip that out.
Sure.
But SAP is terrible to use on a factory floor. It's clunky. It's slow. It's just hard to read.
So BatchBuddy is the interface, the user-friendly front end.
It's the layer on top. It's the system of engagement. The chemists and the floor managers use BatchBuddy because it speaks their language.
Yeah.
It looks like a recipe. It handles the complex math.
And then it talks to SAP.
Right. Then, via an API, BatchBuddy sends the financial totals back to SAP.
So the CFO gets his report in SAP, but the chemist doesn't have to learn accounting software to mix a shake.
Exactly. As the text puts it, finance sees the margins, chemists see the chemistry. Old ERPs like SAP are built on these ancient, rigid database structures. Think of them like massive stone tablets. If you want to add a new feature or change a workflow, it's like chiseling stone.
Slow and expensive.
Very. BatchBuddy acts more like a nimble web app. It uses something called webhooks.
And webhooks are like digital listeners.
That's a great way to put it, yeah. So say you sell a bottle of vitamins on Shopify. The moment that customer clicks buy, a webhook fires a signal to BatchBuddy. Order number 123 placed. BatchBuddy instantly looks up the recipe for that bottle, calculates the ingredients used, and deducts them from your inventory in Firebase.
In real time.
Instantaneous. There's no batch processing overnight, no manual entry. It syncs the sales floor to the factory floor instantly, and that is very, very hard to do with legacy systems.
We have to talk about the government, because in this industry, if you mess up the math, you don't just lose money. You might actually get shut down.
The regulatory pressure is immense. The scary acronym here is FDA 21 CFR Part 11.
Which sounds like a droid from Star Wars, but I assume is less helpful.
Much less helpful. It's the regulation governing electronic records. If you are going digital, the FDA demands that your records be immutable.
Immutable meaning I can't delete them if I make a mistake.
You can never delete. You can only amend. And you need a digital trail showing exactly who changed what, when they changed it, and why. If you are using Excel, you are non-compliant by default.
Because you can just delete a row and no one will ever know.
Exactly. And if the FDA catches you doing that, the risk is catastrophic. A single recall or audit failure can cost millions. BatchBuddy offers turnkey compliance.
How so?
It generates electronic batch records, or EBRs, automatically. Every click, every weigh-in, every single change is logged in a way that satisfies the FDA. It's basically insurance baked into the workflow.
There was a stat in the rebuttal playbook that really drove the cost argument home for me. They called it the 6% threat.
This is their answer to the "but spreadsheets are free" objection, because on the surface, Excel is free. You already have it.
But free has a cost.
The data shows that manual processes, typos, and what they call shadow ERP silos, all those disconnected spreadsheets, they leak an average of 6% of annual revenue.
6%. So if I'm a $5 million company.
You are lighting $300,000 on fire every single year. You're losing it to wasted ingredients, bad pricing data, and inefficient labor. Suddenly, a $300 a month subscription looks like the bargain of the century.
Before we wrap up, I want to pivot to a part of the platform that I just didn't see coming. We've been talking about the manufacturers, the people making the pills.
Right.
But there is a whole other side, the suppliers.
The people selling the barrels of ashwagandha and whey protein?
Exactly. Usually software focuses on the buyer. But BatchBuddy has a supplier solution that talks about moving from chasing leads to getting specified. What does that even mean?
This is a really, really smart play. Traditionally, if I'm a supplier, I have to hustle. I send you a sample of my protein, you test it, maybe you buy it, maybe you don't.
It's a one-off transaction.
It is. Getting specified is totally different. It means my specific brand of ingredient is written into your bill of materials, your master recipe, inside the software itself.
So I'm not just buying generic whey. I'm buying Bob's Organic Whey.
And because it's in the software, every time you run a production batch, the system automatically tells you to buy Bob's Whey. As a supplier, I'm not just a vendor anymore. I'm baked into the DNA of your product.
It's like a dating app for chemistry. Must love FDA compliance.
It kind of is. And it gives the suppliers incredible market intelligence. They get a dashboard where they can actually see search trends. They can see, oh, wow, searches for lion's mane mushroom are up 200% this week among manufacturers.
So they can see what the formulators are dreaming up before the products even hit the shelves.
Exactly. It lets them anticipate the market rather than just reacting to orders. Plus, they can display verified compliance badges, organic, kosher, FDA, GRS. In a system where compliance is the biggest headache, having those badges visible makes a supplier the path of least resistance.
So zooming out, we have gone from the $10,000 spreadsheet error to this fully integrated ecosystem. What does this tell us about the future of software in general?
I think we're witnessing the death of the generic ERP. For a long time, software tried to be one size fits all, but we are moving toward verticalization.
Niche is the new normal.
It really is. BatchBuddy isn't trying to be software for car manufacturers or clothing stores. It is hyper-specialized for CPG, supplements, and food. It understands potency. It understands recipes. And that depth is becoming way more valuable than breadth.
It also seems like scalability is changing. You don't have to graduate from QuickBooks to SAP anymore.
That's a huge point. The rebuttal playbook highlights that you can start as a solo formulator and grow into an established enterprise all on the same platform.
You just unlock features.
You just unlock features like API access, team collaboration as you grow. You never have to go through the absolute nightmare of migrating your data to a new system.
Which anyone who has survived a data migration knows is a true blessing.
It saves months of downtime.
It really makes you look at that vitamin bottle differently. There's an invisible digital layer wrapping around it that ensures it's safe, it's profitable, and it actually contains what it says it contains.
And that digital layer is becoming just as important as the ingredients themselves.
Here is a thought to leave you with, and it's something that struck me when we talked about the supplier dashboard. If the software knows what ingredients are trending, if it knows that everyone is suddenly searching for blue algae, and the suppliers know it, at what point does the market intelligence start dictating the formulas before a human even has the creative idea?
That is a provocative thought. Are we inventing products, or is the algorithm telling us what to invent?
Something to chew on while you drink your protein shake tomorrow morning. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.
Goodbye, everyone.